Hey everyone, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to completely dismantle the traditional sales pitch and discover exactly how a structured investigation transforms you from a typical product pusher into an expert problem solver. If you've ever felt like your deals just stall out or that clients resist your perfectly logical solutions, you are definitely not alone. We're drawing on foundational strategies from the world's best sales organizations to show you why diagnosing before you prescribe is the ultimate key to mastering the major sale.
We've got a really clear roadmap for our analysis today. We're breaking this down into 5 stages: the premature pitch trap, enter the spin strategy, uncovering the real pain, implications and explicit needs, and finally, the art of discovery. Let's get to it.
All right, section 1, the premature pitch trap, and the very real danger of prescribing a solution before you've actually diagnosed the problem. Look at this quote, because it's a trap we literally all fall into. The second we hear even a tiny issue, we get too anxious, stop listening, and just start pitching. To really bring this to life, let's play out a scenario. Imagine you're a consultant visiting a stressed out but successful auto repair shop owner. They casually mention, a lot of customers are declining these expensive, necessary repairs because they just don't have the cash on hand. Now, if you immediately jump in and pitch your shiny new customer financing software, bam, immediate skepticism. It's the not telling rule. Pitching your product too early just invites massive resistance because you haven't truly understood their business yet. And here's exactly how that trap plays out in reality. A client asking for a fix is usually just masking a much deeper business pain. In our auto shop simulation, saying we need more customers isn't the real pain. That's just a desired solution. The true problem? It's that current customers can't afford the repairs, which means your mechanics are sitting idle and expensive inventory is just gathering dust on the shelves. Until you uncover that specific dysfunction, you're totally flying blind. So how do we fix this? Let's move to section 2. Enter the spin strategy, and how we actually structure this investigation. The absolute most critical thing to remember in major sales is that success is not about flashy closing techniques. It's about dedicating the entire first half of your conversation to gathering data. In a small transactional sale, sure, maybe you get away with a quick pitch and a hard close. But in a major sale, pushing too early just builds walls. The investigating stage is literally where the battle is won or lost. And this is exactly where the famous spin sequence comes to the rescue. It gives us a sequential framework to guide the buyer's psychology from basic facts all the way to urgent action. SPIN stands for situation, problem, implication, and need payoff. It's a total game changer. It forces you to categorize your questions and shifts you into a consultative, solution-oriented strategy. But before we break those down, I've got a quick question for you about that very first step, the situation phase, where you're gathering background data. How do you think the top performers handle this compared to just your average rep? Believe it or not, the most successful salespeople actually ask significantly fewer situation questions. Why? Because bombarding a buyer with a million data gathering questions gets super boring really fast. You should absolutely do your homework beforehand so you aren't exhausting your prospect by making them act like a Wikipedia page for their own company.
All right, moving to section 3, uncovering the real pain and digging beneath the surface.
As we look at this framework, we see that problem questions are your key to uncovering prospect pain. They are way more powerful than simple situation questions. You want to ask things like, how does this lower conversion rate actually affect your operations? The pro tip here is to think about your products entirely in terms of the specific problems they solve, and then target those exact areas of difficulty. By asking those problem questions, our ultimate goal is to uncover an implied need. This is just the customer admitting, hey, I have a problem, but they might not have the motivation to actually fix it yet. Hearing an implied need is great, but watch out, it's a total trap for amateurs. The amateur hears our auto shop owner say, yeah, people are leaving without getting their brakes fixed, and boom, they immediately pitch their financing service. But the expert knows an implied need alone will never justify a massive budget spend. So, how do we build that urgency? Let's check out section 4. Implications and explicit needs. Enter implication questions. Honestly, these are the heavy hitters. They take that seemingly small problem and magnify the negative consequences so the buyer truly feels the pain of lost revenue. If I'm consulting that auto shop owner, I can't just pitch my solution yet. I have to force the issue. I'd ask, when those big jobs get declined, what happens to your parts inventory? How much mechanic idle time is that causing? And how exactly is that impacting your weekly revenue? You're making them realize the status quo is costing them way more than your solution ever will. And through those implication questions, we transform that vague, implied need into an explicit need. This is the golden moment where the customer actively states a strong desire to solve the problem. The success of your meeting literally hinges on creating these explicit needs. Once the shop owner finally looks at you and says, "We absolutely have to find a way for customers to pay overtime before this totally ruins our quarterly margins," congratulations, you've officially diagnosed the patient. Finally, we hit need payoff questions. Instead of us telling them the benefits, we get the buyer to confidently articulate the value themselves. Remember our simulation rule? The owner will only agree to a follow-up if we make them state the profit margin benefit. So you ask, if you had a financing option right at the register, how would that specifically help your profit margins this quarter? When they answer that, they are the ones selling the solution. It creates this incredibly constructive vibe, and it practically rehearses them to go sell the idea to their own business partners. For our final section, let's bring it all together. Section 5, the art of discovery and mastering the conversational flow. I absolutely love this hockey analogy. Skate to the open ice. Doing this right is a delicate back and forth. You have to sense exactly when to stop probing and when to pass the puck by sharing a relevant success story. It's crucial to remember that understanding their business is way more important than persuading them. You can't just act like an interrogator. Take the info they give you, validate it, and offer something meaningful back to keep the conversation incredibly natural. And to keep things natural, so you don't sound like a robot just reading off a rigid spin script, you have to be totally immersed in your base knowledge. You need cold proficiency on your customer's use case, typical pains, your differentiators, and quantifiable value. If you're pausing to try and remember what makes your product special, you aren't actively listening to the customer. You're just waiting for your turn to talk. Hardwire this knowledge so you can truly focus on their pain. Okay, to wrap up this explainer, I need you to remember this. Jumping to the end and relying on flashy closing techniques, it's a total myth in major sales. Because sellers get that instant dopamine hit of a closed deal, they mistakenly think the closing technique itself won it. But the reality, the heavy lifting was entirely done during the thorough diagnosis. A closed deal is just the natural byproduct of doing the investigation right. So, I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on before your next major meeting. Are you jumping at the first sign of an implied need to pitch your features? Or are you disciplined enough to truly diagnose the critical business cost of your customer's pain? Master the spin sequence, focus on understanding, and watch how quickly you transform from just another vendor into an absolutely indispensable partner. Thanks for hanging out with me for this deep dive, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.